popular rap group Run DMC broke the rap rock barrier. Back in the 1980s, Darryl McDaniels seemingly had it all: celebrity status, money, and the respect of his peers. But overwhelmed with the success he had at such a young age, he sank into a world of depression and alcoholism.
Today, in this brutally frank memoir, 10 Ways Not to Commit Suicide, DMC recounts how he turned to rehab, friends and family to embrace the gift of life. And we're more than thrilled to welcome him. It's Darryl.
What up,
Good morning, good morning. How you doing?
Glad
Welcome
to be here. Welcome to the yellow couch.
Oh, yeah, I love it here.
You like it?
Yeah.
So
I love the yellow couch and I love Milwaukee.
Yeah,
good
you
stuff.
have the happiest face.
Everybody always tell me that, but I'm generally always happy, very happy.
Yeah. For a while though, was it a disguise? Did you look happy on the outside and not feel
Oh
happy
yes,
on the inside?
from early in the '90s, you know, Run DMC kind of like was considered the legends, the pioneers. We made the song King of Rock, so people was literally bowing to us when we walked in the room. And, you know, all the success, all the accolades, but on the inside, I was totally destroyed.
Why is that? Is it, did you feel unworthy of all that praise? Did you feel, or was it that you were just feeling isolated?
Well, what happened was when I first got into this business, it was fun because...
How old were you?
I was 18 years old.
18.
So young.
Yeah, so just
young.
making records was just creative, artistic expression. I was a little kid. I went to Catholic school my whole life. I was a straight A student, always had 5 and 6 stars on my forehead, always on an honor roll. But I was into comic books.
Yeah.
And I was always reading comic books. And even back in, you know, the late 60s, early 70s, the educators didn't see the power in reading comic books. Remember, don't let the kids read comic books, it's going to ruin them. But the fact that I was reading every day made me a great student.
Well, now they call those, they have like graphic novels, where that's like become,
novels.
I mean, you think about the Diary of a Wimpy Kid and how books have changed. The
Yeah,
format
exactly,
has changed to
exactly,
appeal to
exactly.
kids like
Well,
you.
if a kid is reading, he's going to be an excellent reader.
Yes.
But they didn't see that. So back then, my imagination was the power and the source of my creativity. Once I got into the business, it was kind of like Darryl makes DMC successful, but in the business, they only want DMC.
Yeah.
Darryl, we don't need none of that Darryl stuff here. So me, to please others, to fit in, to, you know, be the one that, oh, DMC so easy to work with. I wouldn't express my true feelings and my opinions. Our lives is about feelings. If we don't feel right, your relationships, your jobs, your occupations, I don't care what you're involved in, is going to be destroyed. And that happened to me.
So true.
And it took me to go, well, then alcohol became the false sense of power. Instead of all the artistic, creative, pop culture things, like growing up as a kid, it was the Flintstones and I Dream of Jeannie and the Munsters and comic books and Mickey Mouse and all of that. And as adults, we tend to forget about those things as we get into our businesses and our occupations and our families and stuff like that. So alcohol replaced all the sincere, innocent, true inspirations that was driving me creatively. You know, the alcohol started with, oh my God, I gotta, you know, go out here and I gotta go make this record and I gotta do this appearance and I gotta do this concert. So it started with one drink before, So it started with one drink to be able to function. Then that drink turned into a fifth of Jack Daniels and Jim Beam being my best friend. It started with 1 40-ounce of Old English before I went on stage. And in the book I talk about I was up to drinking a case of 40 ounces of Old English a day.
No way.
Yeah, I was so alcoholic, I put a freeze in the back of my SUV so I didn't have to stop at the grocery stores to get out and get them.
What?
So that continued all through the 90s, all the way up through the 90s, till about 91. And then I was diagnosed with acute pancreatitis. So I went in the hospital, all this in the book. I was in the hospital a month and a half, and when I got discharged, the doctor looked at me and said, son, you have 2 things you can do in life. You can drink and die or not drink and live. So cold turkey from 91, I was able to look at drinks because I had pancreatitis. It was easy. If I drink that, I'm gonna die.
It was a no.
But in 2000, I found out that I was adopted at age 35 and didn't know that my whole life. And I found out that my mother knew, my father knew, all my little cousins knew, every school, the nuns and the priests knew, even the mailman knew, Mr. Hooper knew.
You were the only one
and
who
when
did.
I received that information, emotionally, I wasn't able to handle that. And I turned right back to drinking. And when I stopped drinking, it was screwdrivers and Bacardi and Coke. When I started drinking again, it was just strictly Jack Daniels and Jim Beams. I mean, I was walking around with fifths of Jack Daniels and Jim Beam and drinking it like you drink a bottle of water. And that went on for 4 years. And then in 2004, I was in Vegas on New Year's. And I drank a whole fifth of Jack Daniels, and I looked at it and I said, I gotta stop drinking, else I'm gonna kill myself. But all through the period of the 90s, being in the business, I was just allowing myself to please others while it was killing me. And it was probably like 93 where I just laid there one day and said, am I here just to be DMC, the king of rock? And I thought about everything people said that me, Run and Jay did, and it didn't have no significance to me. And I didn't know at the time that success without significance means nothing. So I was just thinking, if I'm just here to be the DMC guy, to be with Run and Jay and just be known as the king of rock and the My Adidas dude, I don't want to live no more. So people didn't know, in addition to struggling with trying to cope and please others and be successful in this business, I hated waking up every day. And that's
you
how
thought
my
about
book opened.
suicide on a regular basis, right?
A
Daily?
whole lot of times, yeah, I thought about shooting myself. The funny thing is, I remember we went to Japan and I went into the hardware store. And remember when I was talking about a little kid, you watching all the TV shows. Remember how if you was watching the Munsters and the Addams Family, the poison would be a little bottle that would say rat poisoning in black with the X, with the skull and the X and stuff like that. So I went into the to a hardware store in Japan, because I snuck away from Run Jay and my manager and the translator that they give you when you go to Japan. And I go up into the hardware store and I'm trying to ask the Japanese guy for rat poisoning. And he don't understand me, I don't understand him. He wound up chasing me out of there, and I walked out of there dejected. I can't even kill myself right.
You can't even do it.
Yeah, but you know, I thought about, you know, the gun, I thought about the poison, and then one time, when we was in somewhere like Austria, we did a photo shoot, and the hotel gave us access to do the photo shoot on the roof. And I remember we did the photo shoot, and when we went back down to our floor, I remember I waited till Run Jay and my manager and everybody were in the room, and I ran back upstairs on the roof, because it was a roof, it had no guards or nothing like that, you know, no guardrails or anything. And I always tell this story when I go speak at agencies, suicidal agencies, and even when I go to speak to kids who struggle with mental, you know, anxiety and suicidal thoughts and like that. And I went up to the roof, and the only reason I didn't jump, this is a true story, I looked down and I said, if I jump and don't die, it's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
So I wanted to figure out another way, but then that made me say, why am I thinking like this? I knew something was wrong with me. It wasn't until that I went to rehab to stop drinking that I discovered something that men do not understand. When you say therapy, men think it's weak. Men think it makes you soft. A couple of weeks ago, I said this, and all the shrinks and the psychologists said, I'm gonna use that. I discovered that therapy is gangster.
Yeah.
Therapy is the most positive, powerful thing that you can do to help you, because
therapy's legit.
It's legit, it's cool,
if you're the right therapist.
It's necessary, exactly. And I also said
you have to go
this.
through a few.
Exactly, but I also said this, a lot of men, you know, take the angle of therapy don't help you and the therapist don't help you. And I go, yeah, he or she doesn't. And they go, why do you go? And a lot of shrinks and psychologists said, I'm gonna use that too. The therapist is just a decoy, so you could do two things. So you can tell yourself stuff you should have been telling yourself many moons ago, or you can repeat stuff you said to yourself that you didn't listen to.
Because you hear it finally.
Exactly. When I went into therapy, I didn't know back in 1985, when the first thing that made me feel uncomfortable happened, I had the power to stand up and address that person, a situation. But instead what I did was I want to please people. I want people to think DMC's easy to work with. You know, I don't want to be a troublemaker. So I held it in. So imagine holding in your true feelings and your opinions from 85 to 2000. And it's just building up every day. Right.
They don't learn how to express themselves.
Exactly.
One of the things,
because they're afraid.
Because they're afraid people won't like them.
Exactly. They won't like me knowing I'm
play into it for you? Because we're almost out of time, but I think that's an interesting part of your story that came also into helping you survive and want to live.
Well, the only thing that you have when you're an alcoholic, suicidal, metaphysical, spiritual wreck, the only thing that you have is yourself. And when you're sitting there and you all alone, you think you're all alone. I'm one of a gazillion people that went through alcoholism, substance abuse, low self-esteem, and suicidal thoughts. But when you're sitting there all alone, there's only one source that you can turn to. And I don't care what you call it, God, Yahweh, Buddha, the mighty one, the all-powerful one. When I was in rehab, I don't go to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings or the 12-step program, because when I was in rehab, when the alcoholic people would stand up and recite the 12-step mantra of my higher power, I sat there, this is in the book, I sat there and said, okay, if I depend on my higher power to help me in times of need, if it's my higher power, it's not out there. If it's my higher power, then it's mine. And if it's mine, it's inside me. So that's the thing that made me say, my manager, my wife, friends and family was telling me, D, you need to go to rehab. I was denying it. But it didn't work. I wasn't empowered until I said, I gotta help myself.
I love that.
So your faith in you is the most precious form of selfishness that you must have. I don't care if you're suicidal, if you have anxiety, if you have substance abuse problems, you shouldn't be afraid to admit how you feel. I don't mean for this to rhyme. If you admit how you feel, you will find a way to heal. But if you hold it in and be ashamed, and if you hold it in, if you hold in your guilt and your shame and your truth, you will never discover the power that's already in you to fight whatever it is that you're battling.
I love your book,
Yeah,
and your 10 Ways Not to Commit Suicide is a fascinating sort of blueprint, actually, for those of you who, and so many people need it, whether you're struggling with depression or regular suicidal thoughts, anxiety, which you also mentioned. thekingdmc.com is where people can find out more about Darryl's book, or Dee's book, 10 Ways Not to Commit Suicide. A wonderful reflection, as well as being so honest. And we're actually giving away, thank you so much, an autographed copy if people call us, which is awesome, because caller number 7 this morning will win that autographed copy. Call us at 414-799-4444. Thank you for being so honest and open.
Thank you. And people can come see me in 2 weeks on the 10th at our store Clicks, 1916 East Capitol Drive in Shorewood. Come on through and pick up a book.
All right.
I love it.
I love your shoes too.
Thank you.
Let's see
your
them up.
shoes.
Pick up those Adidas.
My Adidas, baby. 3 stripes for life.
I love
Thanks, Dee.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.